This is PIX on Politics Daily with Dan Manarino.
Hi there, I'm Henry Rossoff. Welcome to PIX on Politics Daily, filling in for Dan today. And we're going to bring you up to speed on some ongoing efforts in the City Council, particularly at the intersection of reproductive rights and LGBTQ plus rights. And to do that, let's bring in Queens Councilperson Lynn Schulman. We do appreciate you joining us, Lynn. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well today.
So tell me a little bit about what you're working on. I know that there's a lot around, well, let's start with lowering costs, right? Because I know that it's not completely separate from reproductive rights, from LGBTQ rights, because, you know, all the stuff we're talking about, you know, it costs money. What is your proposal on keeping costs down?
So I'm introducing a resolution. Actually, we're going to pass it most likely at the next meeting of the council. It's a resolution that's calling on the state legislature to pass and the governor to sign a bill that has been introduced in the state legislature. It's called the Fair Pricing Act. And what it will do is it will cap costs for routine medical care to 150% of the Medicare rate.
And what would a routine procedure look like? Are we talking about like a tonsillectomy, that routine, or more advanced than that?
No, we're actually talking about more basic than that. Getting a cast taken off, getting a flu vaccine, getting any kind of procedure that is usually done in a doctor's office. What's been happening over the past few years is that big hospitals have been buying up small practices, physician practices. And so if you pay, let's say you pay $100 at a medical practice for something, you'll pay 4 times as much when a hospital buys the practice because you're paying for their overhead.
So let's talk about some of the other pieces of legislation, and all of this, to be clear, such as the one you were just mentioning, is sort of endorsing the plan you'd like to see the state pass. So if you could kind of explain how that works, but touch on your next piece of legislation, which is about protecting data, sensitive information, correct?
Yes, it's protecting sensitive information about anyone that uses medical care. And so that's really important because, as we've seen, the federal government is pulling a lot of personal data from people, and we want to protect New Yorkers.
And then what does it mean with that legislation, with the cost cap legislation we were just discussing, when the council sends something to the state? I feel like I run into this all the time. As a political reporter, I'm more plugged in than most, and I'm not even quite clear on what happens to it at that point. So what happens after you guys pass a piece of legislation like this?
Well, it's not technically a legislation, it's a resolution. Basically, it's a supportive mechanism so that the authors of the bill and the state can take that and say they have support from the city council and from people on the local level, and then that will help to push people to pass the bill. So that's essentially what it is. It's encouraging the legislature to do this and the governor to pay attention to it.
So it's part of building that coalition, that momentum, and we all know how hard it is to get anything through Albany. So this is sort of a step toward that.
I'll give you an example. So an example of that is that I passed a resolution not too long ago to support legislation introduced by Assembly Member Jessica Gonzalez Rojas to make sure that Article 6 money, which is Medicaid reimbursement money, comes back to the city. In 2019, that money, that percentage was reduced only for New York County out of all the counties in New York State. And as a result of that, we lose up to $90 million a year for community health services. And so we passed a resolution doing that. The folks in the legislature used that resolution to try and gain more support for that. And so we're still working on that, but that's an example. Perfect example.
Got it. And then there's another resolution you're working on. Can you tell me a little bit about that one, the third one?
The third one we have, which resolution were you?
I believe you were talked about already protecting data.
Oh, yes.
But
So we want to, yes, I'm sorry. So we're trying to protect individuals who are vulnerable in society, whether they're trans individuals, LGBTQ plus, as we know that there's data in the system for every time you go to the doctor, every time you have any kind of medical procedure and all of that. We want to make sure that data is protected, that people don't take that and use it for nefarious reasons. And we've seen with everything that's going on that it could be a number of things. And the LGBTQ plus community is not something that I'm an open lesbian. We are threatened by some of the things being done by the federal government.
And we've already seen the Trump administration sort of apply pressure and squeeze really in a lot of aspects of life. What's getting the headlines now separate is, squeezing law firms he doesn't like who are pushing ideas. But early on in his administration, I believe he really pushed a couple of local hospital systems to stop doing gender affirming care. Is that right?
Yes. Yes, he did. We actually have a good working relationship with a lot of those hospitals, and we've been talking to them. So we're trying to make sure that people that are in need of care and are scheduled for care get the care that they need.
Okay. Well, Councilmember Schulman, thank you so much for catching us up on everything in the council. Before I let you go, anything else we should watch out for? I know we're about to hit budget season. Anything you're particularly excited about?
I am. There are some things I'm excited about. I'm trying to move forward with diabetes care. We're trying to work on in the preliminary budget response. We talked about some items that we're going to be funding for that, and also very exciting. We're trying to get a program and initiative to do spaying and neutering for pets. For animals, and we're also trying to get a food bank for folks that can't afford food for their pets. So those are some exciting things. Yep.
Oh, I appreciate you highlighting some, because I feel like so often the conversation almost feels like, what's the top line? Money for cops, and not that any of that stuff's unimportant, but I appreciate you highlighting some of those things that New Yorkers will actually feel. You have a great day, Councilmember. Thanks for coming on.
You too. Thank you.
So that'll do it for this edition of PIX on Politics Daily. Again, I'm Henry Rossoff in for Dan. You can catch this stream every day at 1 o'clock. And of course, check out PIX on Politics Friday at 6:30 with a re-air on Sunday morning. We had a great episode featuring Cory Booker, senator from New Jersey, who just gave that very, very long filibuster speech. So you're going to want to check out that. It'll be posted at pix11.com. But for now, you have a great day.